If you read the Gospels, Jesus challenges us again and again to be involved with people who are imprisoned. Stay tuned. We're going to accept that challenge. Hi, I'm Father Mike Manning. God bless you. Thank you very much for watching the program. We've got a program that's really exciting, a challenge in a beautiful way of what it means to be a follower of Christ. And the challenge is, how can we care for people that oftentimes we're frightened of, people that we kind of put away? Well, we put them in prisons. And yet the challenge of Jesus is that we reach out to them, and not only to them, but to the people who are hurt, the victims, and also the families that are the part of those people that are in jail. We got a wonderful guest, Steve. God bless you. Thank you very much for coming.
Thanks for having me here.
Would you tell me a little bit, just generally, what's your involvement in prison ministry?
Well, currently I work with the Office of Restorative Justice in the Diocese of San Bernardino.
Restorative justice, what does that mean?
Well, in restorative justice, we talk about bringing a restorative justice to all those who are affected by crime, to bring restoration, to bring healing and peace to all those affected by crime.
So you're part of the kind of diocesan organization, and there are people that are dedicated to trying to care for prisoners and people that are involved in
Correct, and I think traditionally it was what they would call prison ministry, and it's evolved. And the bishops of the United States did a letter in the early 2000 and challenged us to have a more broader vision. And so now we look, like I said, to work with all those affected, whether it be the perpetrators, the offenders, their families, and the victims and their families, and all the community that's affected by crime. Even
trying, and we have, in the United States, we have so many prisoners. I think
correct.
We have more than any other country in the world.
That's correct.
There are more people incarcerated here.
Right.
And yet the challenge with all of that happening is not only with the perpetrators and with the victims and the families, but what are we doing about the system? Are we allowing what we're doing to hold people to be something that isn't just a tinderbox that they're going to explode and
right.
and leave jail and even become more dangerous?
Right.
Are we trying to reform the prison system?
Right.
How do you react to that?
Well, that's correct, and that's one of the, perhaps, we look at the economic crisis that we're in, and one of the positive things, and we always have to look at that, is that it has allowed us to look at the prison system, because we spend a lot of money on that, on incarcerating people. We spend a lot of money on the death penalty.
I remember someone saying years ago that it was almost like in a state prison, the bill was about $36,000 a year. Are you with me on that?
Right, right.
Which is kind of interesting, because we're struggling with our whole educational system, aren't we? The cost of what it means to go to college and whatnot. And they're saying, oh, we can't handle all of these bills.
Right, and we went through.
At the same time, we're looking at this.
Very expensive, yes. And we went through decades where we created a lot of laws where we locked up more and more people. And they're really starting to look at that. Some of it, for example, was a lot of drug-related, people possession, and they created harsher laws on that. And you had more and more people in the system. And what we saw was, not only did we put more people in, but the recidivism rate was very high.
What is that word?
Recidivism, the people that reoffend, that come back in once they're out. And so we also found that people weren't getting any rehabilitation, any type of reform going in. Sometimes they call it a school where they actually learn the opposite. Go in, and maybe they weren't that involved in a life of crime. Maybe they were just caught up in drugs and they needed more help. And yet they learned, inside they learned new things.
They had to try to exist.
Right, and they come out with new, skills, different criminal skills, and so, this led to a lot of recidivism. But like I said, with the economy right now, thank God a lot of states are really looking at their systems and really looking at the mandatory sentencing, looking at the drug laws, are looking at things like the 3 strikes that keep people locked in perpetually. And, you know, we have these great bills to the taxpayers, for example, with elderly prisoners that have been in for so long. And, you know, so a lot of this is just
in for
so
50
expensive.
years and imagine in for
Yeah, but
50
not,
years.
in for so long. And the thing is we're spending so much money, and then, like I said, the recidivism rate is so high, it's just not effective. You know, and statistics show that when we incarcerate people like that, it doesn't decrease crime. Crime equally increases. And ironically, when we don't, you know, incarcerate people at that rate,
say that again. The more we incarcerate, the higher the
or these policies like the hammer policies, you know, these tough on crimes.
Really?
You know, crime goes up, and a lot of people thought during the crisis right now, the way that, you know, like the realignment and people getting out and the economic crisis, that crime was go up. Crime has gone down. Violent crime has gone down across the nation in California.
I heard that.
And so, you know, it's just...
Yeah, but at the same time, there are people that I'm not sure I want them wandering the streets. Right. There are people that can do some pretty dangerous things. Isn't this true? I mean, shouldn't there be people put in jail and kept in jail?
Right. Yes, I mean, jails have their purpose. I mean, certainly, you know, we look at, you know, protection of society, but again, with the system the way it was locking people up, eventually a lot of people do have to come out. You can't just lock up people perpetually for any little crime. And in as much as jails are not effective, they can come out with more criminal skills or more dangerous. And so there's an interest. If we're not doing it, you know, a lot of people hopefully would do it from the gospel perspective of forgive, of interest in the person, in their good. But even from another perspective, I mean, if you just want the street less tax money, if you just want a safer streets, you know, the interest is to have a more restorative system.
Working at really giving education and care and helping them, giving them talents and job capabilities that when they come out they can start to do that.
Exactly.
Get a family, get a home,
right,
and start to do the things that ordinary people. Steve, before we get into this, I want you to tell me, how in heaven's name did you get involved in this? I can tell that there's a passion in your life for the concern, not only for the people that are in prison, but also for seeing what we can do to change. How did this all get started?
Well, it all started. I went to Loyola Marymount University
here in Southern California.
In Southern California, and it was just one of those things where in high school wasn't involved in a youth group, or, you know, I'd gone to church, you know, with my parents, but wasn't too involved. And it was just a sign that said, you know, if you want to go to juvenile hall, you know, be involved. And I'm not sure how that caught my attention or why at a young age. I think I was either a freshman or early sophomore, you know, how I made that decision. But somehow I got in that car that Sunday morning and went with these other groups of students. And it was just, I just remember going in, and there was 2 things that impacted me.
I'm anxious to know what's going on in your head, you know, because I think we're all kind of concerned. You walked into juvenile hall, holy mackerel, that must have been terrorizing. What was it? What was going on in your head?
Well, I mean, I grew up in Downey, so I mean, it was
you and the Carpenters.
Right. That's correct.
Yes.
That's correct. So I didn't know too much of that. For example, knowing things about gangs or things like that, and obviously in juvenile hall there's a lot of that. You know, the kids are being caught up in gangs. So it was a very different reality, and of course that first time, it's hard for me to remember now, but I've worked with so many volunteers. That first experience, I don't know if it was so much fear, but what interest would they have in me? You know, why would they want to talk to me?
Interesting.
You know, coming in, these kids are gonna, you know, they're not going to listen to me or want me to be around them. So there was that sense, but no, it was amazing how those that come really appreciate you being there.
And that's an important thing. That's a good distinction too, because a lot of times and you've been able to facilitate my going to jail and prison here in San Bernardino, but a lot of times what you do is you can't forget that there are some really terrible criminals in jails,
Right.
But what we get when the word comes out that there's going to be a mass or there's a Catholic service going on, we get a different kind of person, don't we? We get, I think it's a searching person, a person that really cares and is really willing to listen to what's being said with a certain openness. Are you with me on that?
Yes, very much. I mean, people, the ones that come are the ones that want to be there. Now, given within that mix is perhaps people that have maybe done some tremendous things, might be in that category. But yeah, in as much,
and they might just want to get out of their cell for
right, right. But they come, yes, with a great openness.
Should hear one thing? Should you be afraid?
No,
when you go in
right,
that you might get hit over the head.
Right. No, a lot of volunteers have that ideal, and the volunteer, the religious volunteer in general, and you include that a Catholic, be the last person to be afraid. There's a great respect. People might not realize it. There's a great respect for religion, for the religious volunteer, for spirituality. And some people might think the higher security, the more intense crimes, maybe that doesn't apply. It applies even more so.
I hear you.
And within the own politics that they have, there's that you don't disrupt, don't disrespect God, you don't disrespect church, believe it or not, and that's the way it is.
Now here, let me ask you one more question here, and then we're going to have a break. But what's kept you going here? Why you're going back from college? That must at least been 5 years ago, huh?
That's been quite a while. Yeah.
But you're still on fire with this ministry. What keeps you going?
Well, I always found myself going back. I got involved in different jobs and ministry over the year, but I always found myself at the juvenile hall, at the youth authority, at the jail. I always found myself going back, for one thing, I always had a great experience of God there.
What do you mean? What do you tell me about that?
Well, some people say, well, people in jail, it's because they're locked up. That's why maybe they pray or they come to God, as if that kind of just made it not valid, the whole experience. And for me, it was the opposite. I mean, if you look at the story of the prodigal son, if you look at the gospel, or you look at the whole Bible, I mean, who searches for God but the one in need, the one who's down.
And all of a sudden,
and the prodigal son, why did he go back? Because he
lost everything.
And he said, I'm going to go back to my dad. And so within that, there's still sincerity. And don't we all turn to God when we're more down, when there's a death, an illness? And so the fact that they're turned to God, I find it's a very sincere searching. And within that, God is there. And there's a very powerful presence of God there. So that sense always came me back. That sense of the experience of God, and also the experience of just the way what happens within an experience of they call it often a Bible study, but a faith sharing session or a service. The interaction, the fellowship, what you're able just within an hour to interact.
Miracles can happen.
Right.
We're going to come back, Steve. Just a moment. I want you to stay tuned for this message, but then come back, and I want to ask you. I want to ask and wrestle with the idea of what blessing has come to you through being involved with people in jails. Please stay tuned. I don't know about you, but I believe in prayer. I really believe that the Lord hears us when we pray, and I believe that miracles can happen when you pray, and those miracles might not happen if you don't pray. I know you share that faith with me. Well, in my excitement about prayer, I've prepared something for you. It's called Pocket Prayers. Look how small it is. It's filled with wonderful Catholic prayers, the Our Father, the Hail Mary, the Creed, the mysteries of the Rosary, the acts of contrition, the morning and evening prayers, and there's some special Catholic prayers that I know you love, like the Memorare. But it's also filled with very special prayers that are going to touch you day in and day out in your life. One of the prayers that I like very much is the prayer for healing. And even a prayer in financial problems. And oh my, we're struggling with that now. There's even a prayer for getting ready to drive. Please, I would love for you to have this for your donation of $1 or more. This is something that you can put in your pocket, you can put in your purse, and pull out at all kinds of exciting times or even waiting times. It's something you can use at work, you can use it at home, you can use it at school when you're waiting for a bus or you're waiting for the doctor. And I'd love you to get this and perhaps pass it on to a friend, a wonderful gift. Please, would you contact us? You can do it by email, by letter. Please pick up the phone and also contact us through the web page. Remember, Pocket Prayers, a powerful way of making prayer alive and God coming into your life with blessings and peace. Thank you. Please let me hear from you. When I go to prison and do the ministry, with your help, thank you for what you do, I find myself being blessed by the men and women that I'm dealing with who are incarcerated. There's something that happens that forces me to look at myself. And as they're in a prison of walls, I have to think also of my own prisons, the things that are holding me back from being free, from being the person that I should be. Do you relate to that at all?
Oh, yes, very much, very much. I mean, there's always that sense, you know, in the Catholic detention ministry, we always emphasize a lot of listening, that we try not to be, preach or go in to teach or think I'm going to, convert this person. We really, that you evangelize like St. Francis of Assisi, through being there, through presence. So certainly, yes, there a lot of times because of what we said earlier, they're searching. I mean, there's a lot of wisdom that comes out from what they share. And perhaps the few times that, I might, give advice or say something that also naturally, like you said, challenges me. And sometimes they'll throw it back. Sometimes, what about you? Or in different ways, or how are you doing? They ask you and so you have a chance to share. So yeah, I always feel walked out. I feel walked out challenged. I feel renewed.
You spoke for just a little bit. There's a couple points that I want to make with you. You spoke a little bit about the Christian basis for all of this ministry. Could you speak a little bit more about that? As a Christian, why should I be so involved in prison ministry?
Right. Well, certainly, in Matthew, Jesus said, I was in prison and you visited me, and that's, perhaps the classic phrase that we quote, but also in general, Jesus, going out with everybody that he came across, and even
prisoners, and
everybody.
The prisoners of bad spirits, the prisoners of Satan, the prisoners of things that were restricting them. Yes.
Right. So there wasn't anybody that Jesus, he was always going out to the margins and looking for everyone, to bring everybody in.
And he was a prisoner himself.
He was a prisoner himself, and there was a good thief. They say that was the first one, in a sense, to go into paradise.
So that whole reality of jail and prison is a really important Christian perspective, isn't it?
Right. Oh yeah. And often, if we think of, like, we just had the reading of the lepers, recently. I mean, who are the lepers of today? With modern medicine, and we could say, they come out. Some of them, they could work on a lot of programs. A lot of them get into a lot of programs, and they come out, and nobody wants to hire them. Yes. Nobody wants to live near them. And here they are. They need so much support to come back into the community once they've gotten close to God, they've worked on themselves, and yet, for a lot of people, they're lepers. They don't want to.
Powerful. Oh, Steve, that's powerful. My next question, though, is, I'm sitting at home and I'm listening to all this, and you're all excited about prison, and I'm all excited about prison, and we're talking about a Christian perspective. Could you give me some practical steps that at home? What should I do to maybe overcome my fear and get involved? How can I jump into this in an effective way?
Well, for a few people, perhaps, there is a direct way of getting involved in detention ministry. A lot of dioceses now call it restorative justice, so that would be one way to connect with you.
So you give a call to the diocese and say, boom, wherever you are.
Right, and
tell me what's going on and how can I get involved?
Exactly, and for some people, they might be. A lot of facilities don't do nowadays, one time or a come and see clearance, but some places do where you could go experience it. But for some people, it will be a ministry that they can get involved in, and once you have that experience, it'll change a lot of perspectives. For other people, I would say, it's an opportune time. There's a lot of good things being written at this moment about prisons and about prisoners because of, like I said before, the economy, and people are looking at things differently. And just to read a different perspective. Read some of the editorials. There's a lot.
Where would I go for that? Could you help me with that? I maybe just Google prison.
Well, it's certainly restorative justice. If you look at restorative justice, that's a great movement in its kind of greater examples of restorative justice. You look at where they bring victims and offenders together, and sometimes with proxy victims, sometimes with an actual offender and victim, and families, and you're looking again to restore the people that have been affected by it.
That's one of the things. For a long time, I've heard of an organization that was called Friends Outside, but you said that you're doing a thing that we had a program on in which you're facilitating children being brought on Mother's Day to the women's prisons.
Right. Get on the bus, yes.
Get on the bus. That's another aspect of Christian love and concern, not just for visiting the people in jail, but gosh, the families that are left devastated oftentimes by the mom and dad or brother or sister or uncle being taken out.
Right.
And a lot of times they don't. That was the breadwinner.
Right.
And now all of a sudden they're left really on a difficult plane.
Yes.
How do we deal with that?
Yeah, I would say they do need a lot of times people are embarrassed if they're related to somebody and they don't want to talk about it. So to be able to reach out to them and support them, whether through an organization like Get on the Bus or in a personal way, if you come to know somebody, just to listen. In all of these ministries we emphasize listening. And I must say, all the restorative justice, there's a great focus also on victims and their families.
Let's talk about that. What do you mean? There's actually a ministry for that?
Yes, because if you look at the church,
so a person has been raped or a person has been robbed, and their life has been turned upside down.
That, and in particular, families of people that have been murdered.
You just listen to.
Well, some dioceses are taking steps, for example, where they reach out. If there's a family of somebody that's been murdered, or maybe by gang violence, or whatever type of violence, maybe somebody whose loved one died in a DUI, incident, whatever it may be. A lot of people the diocese train people to go out and to minister to those people and to walk with them, in their pain, and also to continue to minister to them.
I remember
retreats
in Hollywood. I had there was a person, Michael Levine, that was very concerned about this, and we had a beautiful mass, in which was publicized around. If you are the victim of a crime and you're really suffering, this could be a chance to come and to pray and experience maybe some healing, from what you're doing.
Yeah, and it comes full circle, because what we then discover also is that in focusing on victims, that many of the incarcerated were early on were victims. Not to justify anything they did, but we discover that. And so in focusing on healing to victims, then also it enlightens the work with the incarcerated, because often they were victims, and so how do you bring healing to them so that they come out again, and society's going to benefit from them coming more in touch with themselves and becoming a better person. So it comes full circle.
Steve, thank you. We're gonna take a break and come on back, and I've got people that have asked for prayers, and we're going to bring a basket of those people that have called in and whatnot and pray over them. We also want to come up with a blogging question.
Right.
We want to figure out, what could we say to you to be able to respond? We want to hear what you have to say about that. So stay tuned, please. We'll be right back. You and I believe in prayer. Prayer changes everything. And I've prepared a wonderful little gift for you to help with your prayer. It's called Pocket Prayers. It's wonderful. It can fit in your purse, in your pocket. And you can pull it out and pray the Catholic prayers that we know, but also some of the special prayers that I've composed that I hope will allow God to come into your life with greater force. Please remember the prayer for healing, financial help, and remember also a simple prayer that is going to be said before you start driving. Remember, this can be used at work, at home, at school, while you're waiting for a bus or waiting for a doctor. It's also a wonderful gift to share with people you love. For only $1 or more, you can have this. Please contact us. Let me know that you're part of this ministry in a great way. God bless you. Steve, the ministry is one of you and I sharing, and hopefully people are listening and being affected, but it's also something in which we want people to respond. We have a thing called an app on the iPhone. It's iGod Today. So if you'd pass the word around, if you see somebody with an iPhone or an Android, tell them I have a daily message. But we also deal with, on our webpage, wanting to know if people would respond to a question. And one of the questions we've been going back and forth with is, where is God? Especially when you have two conflicting things going on. You've got a victim and you've got a perpetrator. Mm-hmm. Where is God in the midst of all of this? Does that sound like a fair question?
Yes, yeah. That'd be a good question.
So would you go to the webpage and let us know what you think about that, please? I'd love to hear you, and we'll get back to you with things. But now, this is really the heart of what goes on, Steve. We get people calling in, writing in, and emailing in, sharing their prayer needs. And I'd like to pray, if we can, to conclude this. But Martha from Washington, D.C., healing for her body. She has open heart surgery coming up. Philip from South Carolina, his mother and brothers, himself, and really rough economic problems right now. Diana in Ohio, she wants to pray for herself, and she wants to also pray for me and for Wordnet, for the ministry. Lay your hands on that if you would, Steve. Lord, we come to you with great faith and confidence that you love us and you care for all of these people. Work miracles, Lord. Free them. And may Jesus' love for you always make you smile.